This is your SmackDown edition of the Off the Mic Wrestling Show here on YouTube. I'm Mike Mayer. Thanks for tuning in. Here's the thing. Before we start here, I got to say, Raw, and I've had this conversation with a bunch of people, Raw recently, and I think a lot of this has to do with the fact that Roman Reigns is just not there on SmackDown. Raw is lapping SmackDown in terms of storyline. And I think maybe part of this is the preparation of Raw being the A show again, going to Netflix, and SmackDown going to be back on USA later this year. The 5-year experiment of SmackDown being the A show, Michael Cole has already moved over to Raw. Pat McAfee's there. You already know that that's the A announce team. Corey Graves, who has done a really good job in the play-by-play position. He's a color commentator. Let's call it what it is. And they're going to experiment with Joe Tessitore probably after SummerSlam. A guy who's never called a wrestling match, but is a wrestling fan, and I maintain that that's going to be at least an interesting idea. But when you look at these shows on SmackDown, I'm not saying that they're bad. It's just that if you compare it side by side with Raw, like it's not competitive. Like Rhea and Liv, you've got Damian Priest in the Judgment Day, you've got Jey Uso in his rise to the top, and yes, they have SmackDown's got Cody Rhodes, but a lot of people are just not like into this bloodline thing. And like I said this on my mailbag show yesterday, it's really hard to buy into Solo Sikoa and buy into the fact that this is your main event of SummerSlam. It really is. And like I said, it's all leading to Roman Reigns returning. And I'm going to address some of this later on in terms of how I think this is going to go. But really, the show was built around, obviously, the angle from last week with Randy Orton getting written off and effectively, I think he's going to be out of storyline through SummerSlam. Some people are expecting maybe he sells for Jacob Fatu. I just don't see a scenario at this point with the way that they're building this storyline with the Bloodline for Randy Orton to make a return, which sucks because a superstar and a talent the level of Randy Orton deserves to be on SummerSlam, in my opinion. He hasn't been on one. He was supposed to be facing Roman Reigns in 2022 at SummerSlam. That was at least the early report in Nashville, and then they ended up going with the last man standing match with Brock Lesnar with the crazy tractor stuff and everything, and that was the first pay-per-view premium live event of the Triple H era after Vince McMahon, unceremoniously or not, depending on who you talk to, was pushed out of power or resigned or retired, whatever. Randy Orton, if you can believe it, hasn't been on a SummerSlam show since 2021 when he won the tag team titles with Riddle and RK Bro. Randy is as great of a talent as you're ever going to find, and it's like it would be a shame for him to miss the show. But based off the way that they're building this angle, I just can't see a scenario laid out and already being 4 matches announced. It's going to be really hard for Randy Orton to get on this show. But anyway, let's kind of start from the beginning. So it starts off Cody Rhodes, not in a suit, weirdly, coming out in his new sick-looking T-shirt merch. He talks about Randy Orton, how Randy helped him become the champion. He's not the champion if it wasn't for Randy Orton. And so he goes, so imagine my guilt when watching the Bloodline put him through a table and do this. He calls Randy family and a brother. This is clearly setting the stage for the heartbreak of Cody Rhodes. And I hinted at, is Cody going to see this coming or not when Randy turns? I think it's going to be the classic Randy Orton heel turn where he just blindsides him, and Cody's not going to see it coming. It sucks because it makes the babyface look stupid, but it's not going to make it any less devastating, which I think is going to make Cody get even more sympathy and more over as a babyface, which is kind of hard to believe because Cody is the most beloved babyface in the company. I mean, that might change when Roman Reigns comes back because Roman's going to get this. He's getting nuclear chance when he hasn't even been there since the beginning of April. That's just wild to even think about. So then Cody continues the promo saying, I looked Solo in his eyes before WrestleMania 39 and said, you're not ready. He paid me back by costing me the title that year. And then how does it feel to know that you're still not ready? And he gets interrupted by Austin Theory and Grayson Waller, which was a bit of a surprise. But they explained, hey, we're out here. You're the reason that we got attacked by Jacob Fatu. And then they basically plant more seeds. They say Randy Orton got hurt because of him. And they start to fight him 2-on-1. And Cody is going over towards the front row. I didn't mention this, but he walked by Terrence Crawford and dapped him up. Terrence Crawford, undefeated boxer who's having a big fight later this year out here in LA, the soccer stadium downtown, BMO Stadium. So Terrence Crawford ends up handing him a chair, and Cody hits Theory with the chair and then throws the chair at Theory. Theory holds up the chair. Cody gets a disaster kick, which looked great. And that's the end of the segment. And Cody's walking backstage with Nick Aldis after this. And basically, he asked for the match. He says, I'll take on them on 2-on-1. I don't care. Nick's like, no, you're not. I'm not going to put my champion out there this close to SummerSlam and risk you getting injured. So he tells Cody to find a partner. We're left to speculate for the rest of the night. Then we get Carmelo Hayes and Andrade. And when I tell you, this was such an entertaining sprint of a match, which, you know what, I'm going to say this, and this is going to piss some AEW fans off. I might have been more entertained, and this might have been just from bell to bell, a much more digestible match than Will Ospreay versus MJF. It shows that you can have a good wrestling match in under 60 minutes. And it's part of the reason why I have such a problem with them wrestling for that long, MJF and Will Ospreay, for that long, and then going to a finish that is just so rushed and so out of nowhere that it's like, okay, you're rushing to a finish. It's a wrestling match. So this in the context of this match and everything that was put together, these guys worked really well together. They had high flying maneuvers. They had great counters, including the end of this match. And I dare say it was a more fun and more digestible match than what's going to be more critically acclaimed in Will Ospreay versus MJF. And like I said, the reason why I have continually stuck to my point about not really liking this on the Richter scale of being this 5 3/4 match that Dave Meltzer's rating it as. And I'm not saying that Carmelo and Andrade is going to get that level of acclaim. It won't. But when you talk about just putting that match together and just, you know, making it feel kind of natural, it felt like that. And when you have a 60-minute match that boils down to one final minute, it just didn't hit for me. And it pissed me off because, like I said, you rendered your top babyface looking like a freaking moron. And it's not good booking. It's not good because they're going to try and convince us that Will Ospreay, and I keep getting sidetracked by this because this has been bugging me the whole week and seeing so much praise for this match. And it's like saying, you guys aren't pissed off that we all know what this is leading to, but at least in a match like this, we knew what it was. Okay, it's built up as this, like, you know, got two guys who have a chip on their shoulder from being in the Money in the Bank match. They're two young and up-and-coming guys or guys who are in the middle of the card trying to elevate themselves, especially at Carmelo Hayes. But, like, in the context of this, these guys are moving around, they're doing things in this match, and it gets the job done. And it's not like this, you know, massive bit of storytelling. It's more digestible to me than feeling duped through a 60-minute story build, all this other stuff that was rushed onto television, by the way, and they get to the finish where Will Ospreay just can't put himself to do a wrestling move that he's doing multiple times and still can't do it, and then it costs him in the last 10 seconds of the match. It's just, again, I dare say that Carmelo and Andrade, from bell to bell, just, you know, was much more digestible and much easier and more palatable to me because it's just like, hey, these guys went out there and did a bunch of cool stuff and really wrestled, and it was just a spectacle of a match. I mean, there was a lot of counters early on in this match. Carmelo counters the reverse Spanish fly. Remember, that was hit on the ladder in the Money in the Bank match, so it was a neat little thing. So he goes off the ropes. He hits his fadeaway leg drop. We go to break there. During the break, we saw that Andrade did get that reverse Spanish fly maneuver. We didn't see it. Andrade gets his moonsault off the top rope, where the spot where Carmelo rolls away, and then Andrade hits a standing one. That's great. That gets a really good 2 count. The crowd is really into this, which really helped this match too. Andrade then hits one of my favorite moves in wrestling, the spinning back elbow where you just cannot see it. You think he's coming at you from the front with like a punch or a lariat, and he comes back and hits you with the back elbow. That gets a 2 count. Carmelo goes for Carmelo counters Andrade going for a top rope splash, hits the first 48, double knees to the face. He goes up for nothing but net, his top rope leg drop. It gets countered. A little spin around from Andrade and Carmelo, and Andrade hits the message, his finish for the win. This was so much fun. Even in the abbreviated amount of time, I liken it to a match like Kurt Angle versus Rey Mysterio at SummerSlam 2002. One of the best opening matches I've ever seen. Went for 9 minutes, complete sprint, nothing, cooking with nothing but gas, and these guys just put on a show. It was phenomenal. I like that match. I hope it leads to more opportunities for Andrade, and seemed like the fans were really into this match, and I'm really hoping that he gets some better reactions moving forward as he progresses up the card and potentially into other feuds down the line. I don't know where that's going to lead him to, especially on SmackDown with, you obviously have Santos Escobar and Legado del Fantasma still there, but they've kind of drifted down the card a little bit. If LA Knight's going to win the U.S. title at SummerSlam, I really just don't know where Andrade's going to fit because you've got Cody as a top champion as a babyface. I mean, Andrade's been a good heel, but I think they're trying to build him up as a babyface. So we'll see. But I really hope that they do more with both of these guys because Carmelo Hayes is really great too. Even in a defeat here, this was an outstanding match to start the show. Then we get a side-by-side, good old side-by-side image promo of Bayley and Nia Jax. Nia basically interrupts the questions being asked by Corey and Wade Barrett, saying, "Hey, I'm not listening to you. Look at me. Look at Bayley. Feel sorry for her. I'm going to put you down like a sick dog." Pretty killer. Again, Nia's been really good. She's upped her game a lot since she came back. Bayley then comes back. This was like a work shoot thing, similar to what they did with Matt Riddle and Seth Rollins a couple years ago, leading into their match at Clash at the Castle, which built a ton of heat between the two of them, where Seth took shots at Matt Riddle about being divorced and being away from not being able to see his kids, which was pretty savage. So anyway, Bayley comes back from what Nia said. Basically says, "You haven't changed. You're the same heartless woman since day one who walks around like she owns the place, doesn't care." And then she brings up the 2017 match, which is this is the second time that they brought this up, saying the match changed her career. You hurt me because you are big, clumsy, and reckless. And Bayley also says she's changed like Nia since 2017, and she'll end up retaining the title. So she's changed. This whole thing is built around change, and I think this has been really solidly built. I mean, it's not as big of a deal as, Rhea Ripley and Liv Morgan on Raw, but this is a solid women's feud. And there was a match later on in the show that really effectively, upped the ante a little bit with Tiffany Stratton in the mix as well. This has been solid. And I mean, they're trying to give you the case that Bayley can retain at SummerSlam. If that's the case, I see she could probably hang on to the title, but it's a much more obvious tell if Bayley wins that Tiffany Stratton uses the briefcase, cashes in, and she's the women's champion. I don't think there's any rush to that. Nia winning makes this a little bit more interesting because then that increases the likelihood that Tiffany Stratton holds on to that briefcase for a lot longer. And frankly, like I said, I know you can say what you want about Nia, but Nia deserves to be women's champion, given the metamorphosis of what she's been able to do. I talked about the metamorphosis of Rhea into the superstar, but Nia Jax turning into actually a solid performer on screen, because a lot of people didn't like her from her in-ring work. They didn't like her with a lot of the pathways of just how she works in the ring. She got a ton of heat on her for all the wrong reasons. And she's turned around since she came back last year and has really morphed herself into one of the cornerstones of this women's division, and I think really a key to SmackDown right now. So this match between Nia and Bayley, I think, has a lot of heat behind it, especially heavily leaning into that stuff that happened where Bayley really got injured 7 years ago. You can't talk about who ended up winning the women's championship in Bayley's place, because that was Bayley's best friend, Mercedes Moné, formerly known as Sasha Banks. So we'll leave that out of the storyline here. But yeah, this was great stuff. Like, low key, really good. A lot of women's stuff on the show. Maybe not in terms of time, but there was a lot of segments dedicated to women. We get after this Bianca Belair, Jade Cargill, Piper Niven, and Chelsea Green all trying to get into Nick Aldis's office. This leads to Bianca just proposing a match with Chelsea, saying, "Hey, you know, let's see whoever wins can go talk to Nick first." And so this was really quick, and a lot of people had a problem with it. I can see it. My theory is, so let's run through this really quick. So Bianca hits a really nasty looking German suplex on Chelsea. Tries to go off her ropes for the standing moonsault. Chelsea gets out of the way, rolls her up. Bianca then rolls her up, and that's a 3 count. This was over in like 60 to 90 seconds. This did not last very long. My theory is they wanted to establish Bianca Belair again as who Bianca Belair is. Like, we haven't seen her wrestle a lot recently. This is one of the biggest stars in the women's division. She hasn't really had a lot of work recently, so it was like, hey, let's just get her on the show and let's give her a match. I probably would have done this a little bit differently, but I understand. Okay, you've got a main event you're gonna dedicate about 20 minutes to the show. It's only a 2-hour show. You only have so much time. I wish it would have landed a little bit better than, you know, maybe it being 1 minute, maybe it being closer to 4 or 5. It having Chelsea look a little bit better in this match, but, you know, Chelsea, it was a roll up, it was a counter wrestling, and it just sort of ended. And it sort of set up, okay, Alba, Fire, and Isla Dawn are on the Tron after the match, and they're seemingly setting the groundwork for the inevitable rematch where I think that Bianca and Jade Cargill will win back the women's tag team titles for what was basically, you know, a good pop in Scotland. Let's get real. Like, it's nice that Isla and Alba got the title win in their home country. But let's get real. Like, we're window dressing at this point. Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are going to get the titles back. They're going to hold them for a while, and it's going to inevitably lead to a match between those two at some point down the line. Probably, I would say, it feels like a WrestleMania match, to be honest with you. They could do it sooner than that. They could plant seeds and maybe do it later this year. I just don't see the reason to do that. So then we get to LA Knight versus Logan Paul getting set up in a contract signing. So Logan Paul comes out and says, why would I give a title? He was about to sign the contract. He says, why would I give this Larry the Lobster, Aladdin-looking dude a shot? Logan, you know, I know a lot of people don't like him. He's really good at this. He's really good at this. He's really good at getting heat. He's really good at making people hate him. So he's a great foil as a champion. I think they'll convince us that him only defending the title twice and using it as a prop is heel heat. They didn't need to give him the title in hindsight. I understand that you get some notoriety that Logan Paul's the United States champion. It hasn't done anything for him, really. He's Logan Paul. Like, this is one of those cases where I think him having the title, it really hasn't done anything for either side, to be honest with you. Like, people just want the title off of Logan. So if it's going to lead to LA Knight getting the win over here, that's great. LA then responds to Logan and says, hey, yeah, I've cooked you and outshined you every time we've been in the ring. Reminds him of how we got to this point of he showed up at his house. I think he said he took a piss in his pool or something like that. That was pretty funny. Then says, hey, I pinned you at Madison Square Garden. I did all this, and this. Now we've got the contract here. I told you a year ago in Cleveland, ironically, I was going to give you a map of where you could stick all those bottles of Prime. Yeah. So that was a little neat callback there. Logan then says LA's existence is entirely in the ring, and he's not had one really signature moment in the last 20 years. And he then calls him Sean, his government name. Hey, work, shoot stuff again. LA then responds, says, hey, at least your brother Jake had the balls to challenge Mike Tyson, but you don't have the balls. Guess balls don't run in the family. So then that really pisses off Logan to the point where Logan just signs the contract. Boom. We've got the match at SummerSlam. Logan then goes to walk away. He comes back in. He lands a few punches on LA. LA turns it around into a BFT, it looks like, but Logan slips out. and that's the segment. We're getting the match officially at SummerSlam, LA Knight versus Logan Paul. I think we're up to 5 matches already, actually, because we got the 2 world title matches, we got the 2 women's title matches, and now we've got a 5th match with Logan Paul and LA Knight for the U.S. title. So this is not going to be your typical. This is not going to be. I mean, it's SummerSlam, so it's not going to be your typical Triple H PLE card. I would expect a couple more matches to potentially be added. Maybe they go to 6, maybe 7. That's a perfect length for me. Maybe top it out at 8. But I think 6 to 8 is that sweet spot. Not doing 10 to 15 like AEW does, but we're at 5 already, and there's still a couple weeks to go before this. Tiffany Stratton gets a hype package, hyping up her and all that she's done in her career in both NXT and now on SmackDown and WWE on the main roster. Tiffany then comes out for her match. We go to break. It's LA coming out of break. It's LA Knight and Santos Escobar backstage. Santos reminds everybody, "Hey, LA, you didn't pin me in that match at Madison Square Garden. You pinned Logan Paul." So he challenges LA to match. LA comes back, says, "SummerSlam's a couple weeks away. I might have a little free time. If you want to get in touch with me, your mom's got my number." Nice little burn there from LA Knight, who's always just great. And it was announced later that this will be a match next week on SmackDown. So that's set up. Tiffany Stratton against Michin. So Tiffany gets control early on in this match. She's running away, goes behind Nia Jax, and Tiffany comes up from behind, hits Michin in the face, then hits her with her wicked-looking Alabama slam on the floor. Go to break. Finish of this match really was interesting, but I'm not surprised the way they did this, because this is the way that WWE has been booking Money in the Bank winners since the dawn of time. So Nia, Michin's going for a dive, and Michin gets tripped up. Tiffany then takes over with her rolling senton. She's going for the prettiest moonsault ever. Bayley shows up at ringside, starts fighting with Nia, gets the briefcase, hits Nia in the face, then sets up the briefcase on the ground, stomps on it, effectively breaks it. Tiffany's distraught. She's so upset. From behind, it's Michin with a roll-up, and Michin gets the win here. And you know what? Hell yeah. I like what they've been doing with Michin the last few months. She's not the afterthought in the OC. She's gone down to NXT, had a couple bangers. She was in the ladder match to become the first women's North American champion. She had a nice little mini feud with Nia that's still continuing. She's being associated with the women's champion. So Michin is being presented like she matters, which hasn't happened for a while. We all love Mia Yim. Anybody who's watched wrestling and watched her stuff in TNA or watched her stuff on the independent scene know that this woman can work. So you know what? Yes, I understand it came at the expense of Tiffany Stratton, but in the context of what was going on, this was a distraction finish played into what's going on with the women's championship. She's sort of effectively aligned with Bayley, which I like, and they're going to have a tag team match next week. Nia and Tiffany versus Michin and Bayley. That should be great. And yeah, Michin gets the win here. I don't think Tiffany's really hurt much by this because, like I said, it's the Money in the Bank briefcase. This is the way that they have built Money in the Bank briefcase winners pretty much since the inception of the briefcase. They just lose. And this was like a distraction finish, so I don't think it's like anything clean or whatever. It doesn't really do any damage whatsoever. Solo Sikoa then has a backstage promo. He says, "Life is good when you're the tribal chief on the island of relevancy." Then brags about taking out Randy Orton. Says, "If you are on Cody's side, you are against me." He says tonight better be a handicap match, which sets up the main event. Cody is walking to he's walking over to the GOAT position. We're setting up for that follow shot. And into the shot comes Kevin Owens. No surprise to anybody, Kevin Owens is back. His mother kicked out. That is so freaking awesome, Kevin. I am so happy for you and your family that your mother has been able to beat whatever she was battling. That's awesome. Kevin is just like, for those who know wrestling, Kevin is one of the most stand-up people in the business. Everybody loves him. So to see him be able to, like, you know, help and be around his mother and see his mother be able to persevere whatever this adversity was is great. So Kevin's in the match. So the heels take over early on in this matchup. After Kevin goes up to the top, goes for his Swanton Bomb, Grayson Waller gets the knees up, and then we get the rolling drop kick from Austin Theory. Kevin is then able to fight out. He's in the top rope, hits the swanton again, and Cody gets the hot tag. In the midst of all this, Grayson Waller gets in a flatliner for 2. Theory and Waller then again nearly run into each other. And then Theory gets hit with a Cody cutter. Waller got hit with a stunner. Cody then hits the crossroads on Austin Theory for the win. No surprise here. The faces win over A-Town Down Under. You're still trying to plant the seeds a little bit into Grayson Waller and Austin Theory eventually breaking up down the line. So we'll see where that goes. But really what this was about was the closing angle. And Solo and the Bloodline come out immediately after the match is over. Kevin and Cody get the edge early on in this battle because Jacob Fatu's not there, but we know he's coming. And so they look for the powerbomb through the table on Solo, but Jacob Fatu comes out and just effectively just super kicks everything in its sight. He effectively does the running corner hip attack several times on KO. Cody is just watching this as he's being held down again. Cody then gets hit with a powerbomb through the table, similar to Randy Orton. And then Kevin, still crawling around, gets a chair wrapped around him. I think it was Tama Tonga. They wrap a chair around him. They throw him into the ring post with the chair, so sell the neck. And Kevin's effectively written off of television here. So that's your closing angle. Some people are going to complain that it's the almost identical thing to what happened last week with Randy Orton, but this is the way they're going to set the stage for the OG Bloodline to come back into form. And what I think is going to happen, and I've said this since Money in the Bank, what I think is going to happen is the next time Cody needs help, he's going to call in a favor to Adam Pearce and Raw, and with association with Nick Aldis, like he did last year in getting Jey Uso to Raw, he's going to get Jey Uso back to SmackDown to help him. And the next time Jey is in peril, out is going to come Jimmy Uso, and the Usos are going to reunite. It's going to stop this whole chain of reactions of the Bloodline just standing tall, and, until Roman gets back at SummerSlam, when the Usos, his cousins, are in peril again, and out will come Roman Reigns, and Roman Reigns will return. Somebody, JD from New York, who's a YouTuber podcaster on this space, really illustrated, hey, how is it going to look when Roman comes back and saves Cody? Roman's not going to come back and save Cody. Let's get real. The amount of heat that these two have had in the way Triple H tells stories, he's going to come back because he's pissed off at Solo for taking a role that's not his. And I think Cody is going to beat Solo. I don't know if there's going to be some form of interference, and maybe you see a Kevin Owens or a Randy Orton along with the Usos getting involved in this to lead to some sort of chaotic finish where Cody wins, and then the Bloodline standing tall amidst all of this chaos, and out comes Roman Reigns. Not to save Cody, but to get his position back that was really unceremoniously taken away from him for no reason whatsoever. So that's really where I think this is all going to land. So I think people just need to be a little patient. I do think it's going to be interesting to see how SmackDown is booked once Roman Reigns comes back. Because Cody Rhodes is still going to be the champion. You're now going to have Cody and Roman both as babyfaces on that show. How are they going to handle this in terms of their top tiers, and how are they going to book the championship in the way to present Cody like he is the champion? Because Roman's obviously the bigger star here, because you can just tell with the way he's been able to lift this company through really a dark time as the tribal chief. Like, it's just, the evolution of him has been just so remarkable in Roman Reigns. So that's really going to be something that I'm going to be curious to see coming out of whatever happens at SummerSlam. But I think that's what this is setting the stage for. I think Cody is going to enlist Jey. Jimmy will come back off of Jey being in peril for some reason. The Usos reunite. Somehow Sami Zayn will get involved at some point after he loses the Intercontinental title, and we'll go from there. Also, I don't know if you guys saw this, Hikuleo, who of New Japan fame, he is now signed to WWE. We'll see if he joins up with the new Bloodline. That is Haku's son, so I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But so that'll be something to watch to see if we introduce another Bloodline member at some point down the line to set the stage for what's going to probably be a War Games match later in the year. Okay, that's a SmackDown recap. Solid enough show, but like I said, Raw is just a vastly better show. It's just what it is. So one quick thing before I go here. Tomorrow night is a big night for TNA Wrestling. It is Slammiversary in Montreal. We have sold 4,000 tickets for. It's a smaller venue. It's not the Belt Center or wherever the Sami Zayn's big match at Elimination Chamber was. Like, TNA knows what they are. They're in that second tier of North American promotions. They're not where they were 10 years ago, where they were trying to compete against Raw, which in the days of Hulk Hogan, and don't get me started on Hulk Hogan and his involvement in the political scene, which was just ridiculous to see that on. To see a wrestling promo at the Republican National Convention the other night was ridiculous. But so it's a big night for TNA, and it's highlighted by a 6-man elimination match for the World Heavyweight title held by Moose. Nick Nemeth is involved. Frankie Kazarian is involved. Josh Alexander, Joe Hendry, and I'm forgetting who the 6th man is. Forgive me, but I'll figure it out. So yeah, Moose, Josh Alexander, Frankie Kazarian, Joe Hendry, Nick Nemeth, and Steve Macklin. Steve Macklin, who is the 6th guy. I'm sorry, Steve Macklin. The Mr. Deonna Purrazzo. Apologies for that. Steve Macklin's actually done really well for himself. So it's a 6-way match. But the setup to this match has been that Nick Nemeth got hurt, and he revealed on Impact that he's hurt. He's hurt. He has a partially torn labrum. So I'm not 100% convinced. He said he's going to be clear. I'm not 100% convinced that he's going to be in this match. And I have said since a couple weeks ago, if any opportunity there was to create a buzz and have AJ Styles return to TNA Wrestling for the first time in a decade, it would be this opportunity. And you have such a big show on your hands, I would totally sign off to see AJ Styles in this match. I'm not going to go as far as to say AJ Styles should win the TNA World Championship if he's in this match, because here's my opinion. There is only one finish to this match that should be acceptable, and that is Joe Hendry winning the TNA World Championship. You may be snickering at me saying, oh, he's just a gimmick with a song. I have never seen, in all my years of watching wrestling, which spans over 20 years, I've never seen a guy who has shown up on 2 different promotions, television shows, and has been the most over guy in both of them. At some point, you have to recognize, if you're TNA, that this guy is one of the most over people in all of professional wrestling. You can get over and have people singing your song in 2 different places. That's insane. That it's unfathomable in this day of wrestling to have somebody that over in multiple places. This isn't CM Punk getting his name chanted in multiple places. This is a guy showing up on 2 different shows, NXT and TNA Impact, and being the most popular guy in both places. I know he stood tall at the contract signing, putting Moose through a table, and the conventional wisdom in wrestling booking is that the guy who stands tall ahead of a championship match isn't going to win. I think the only finish to this match that is honest to God acceptable is if Joe Hendry is your world champion coming out of Slammiversary. It's the easiest decision that you could possibly make. And if TNA's kind of serious with this, crossover thing with WWE, having Joe Hendry go to NXT as the TNA world champion is a big deal. Look what happened when Jordynne Grace showed up there. She was honestly one of the most popular people there. Yeah, she put over Roxanne Perez, but it didn't hurt her. There was a bunch of interference in that match. So if you're TNA, the only way that this is acceptable, really, to me, is if Joe Hendry is your world heavyweight champion. So, also, Rascals reuniting. They had a match against Gallus on NXT this past week. They're going to face the No Quarter Catch crew. So that's a crossover match. There's rumored to be a lot of surprises on the show. You got Jordan Grace defending against Ash by Elegance, the former Dana Brooke. Mike Bailey versus Mustafa Ali for the X Division Championship will be fantastic. Mike Bailey, one of the best non-WWE performers, or one of the non-major promotions. Like I would include AEW in that thing, even though AEW's way behind WWE. But Mike Bailey is outstanding. Mustafa Ali has really turned himself into a heck of a heel. He's got a Secret Service unit surrounding him, so this is great. I think you've got the system. You've got Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers going up against. They're going up against ABC, so that's Ace Austin and Chris Bay. There's some good stuff on this show. I've never bought a TNA pay-per-view. I might actually buy the show because, for one, just getting the opportunity to sing "I Believe in Joe Hendry" potentially with 4,000 people. This is the biggest show that TNA's put on in probably a decade, to be honest with you. It's their largest audience that they performed in front of. Like, it's a huge deal for this company, and they have to recognize the lightning that they have in the bottle with Joe Hendry. So I hope that they give him the championship in this spot. So we'll hopefully have some reaction later this weekend from Slammiversary. Hopefully some more stuff trickles out. Like I said, I'm glad this week's over. I'm glad I can stop ranting and raving about this Ospreay MJF match. We'll see what the follow-up is next week going into that. And a lot of stuff announced for Raw as well. We'll see. Like I said, we're fully on the road to SummerSlam, people. This is great. Like, it's a really exciting time in wrestling. Follow me at Off the Mic 28. Follow the show here on YouTube at OT Mike Wrestling. Please like, share, and subscribe. Or on Twitter at OT Mike Wrestling as well. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys real soon. Bye-bye.